upcoming correspondent program. There are a lot of details that we're not going to be discussing today, but my intent today is to give you an introduction to the upcoming correspondent division and opportunities for the month of October. So with that being said, I'm going to go backwards a little bit and talk about sort of wholesale compared to correspondent compared to mini correspondent. As you know, through the wholesale channel, we have the brokers submit their packages to us, and we send out disclosures, and effectively we underwrite the file, we draw the docs in our name, and clearly the borrower is aware of Greenbox's involvement on a wholesale loan because all the disclosures have Greenbox all over them. The typical correspondent relationship has what's called a delegated and non-delegated type of relationship. Delegated meaning from an underwriting standpoint, non-delegated meaning that the files go into the investor. In this case, ultimately in a correspondent relationship that we're offering, we would be the investor on the loan, which means that we're going to underwrite and review every loan and sign off all the conditions, very similar to the way that we do on wholesale loans. The concept of mini correspondent is really representative of a few factors, which is really what we are going to offer. Not a true correspondent, but a mini correspondent. There are no exact definitions of a mini correspondent, but really what it is it's basically a step up from a wholesale relationship where you have a broker turned banker, a smaller company, and I say smaller company, we're talking about smaller from a standpoint of net worth, is looking to represent themselves as a lender. That's the mini correspondent concept. In order to be a mini correspondent effectively with us, there's a couple of things that need to happen. One of them is that they need to have a minimum 150,000 net worth. Now, in these mini correspondent concepts, these companies may not have audited financials. We understand they're smaller companies that may require a little bit more creative underwriting from a standpoint of our evaluation of their qualification. But we do require 150,000 net worth of the company, and the owners will need to give a personal guarantee. In order to work with us under mini correspondent, they will need to concurrently, in applying with us, they will concurrently need to obtain a warehouse line through us. So what we're offering is not only a mini correspondent division, but also a warehouse facility that will accommodate our programs. Now, one of the factors with this, and some may immediately ask the question, what if they have their own warehouse line, and what if they're doing business with other people? The problem is that essentially a lot of warehouse banks do not offer non-QM, non-prime programs, and they would have to go through and individually approve us as a takeout investor, as well as individually review us with regards to the programs that we offer. So we don't want to get involved in that kind of a situation where we're heading down a road on a file and then the mini correspondent relationship is unable to actually close the loan because their warehouse bank determines that they don't like the program. So what we're offering is really a turnkey solution with a warehouse facility that we will provide for them as part of the application package, which, by the way, will be a different application package than the wholesale broker package that you know currently. We will actually be finalizing that shortly, and that package will need to be completed, and it involves a series of documents and information, much more than what is on a wholesale broker relationship. As I said, when they get approved with us, they're also going to be concurrently within the same package going to be approved with a warehouse facility. Typically, we will start this facility anywhere from $1 million to $2 million line. It can certainly go up afterwards, but the initial line is not going to be bigger than that until they have actually performed and have actually sold us loans. So we're not going to start off with anything larger than that just to get them off the ground. Now, going back to what I said before with regards to mini correspondent, what's important to understand is that in a mini correspondent relationship, they're no longer disclosing Greenbox in the equation. In other words, unlike a wholesale relationship whereby the disclosures have our name and we're doing disclosures, they will actually be referred to a third-party vendor that will actually do disclosures for them. We recognize that many of these mortgage brokers turned bankers do not have doc drawers. They do not have funders. They do not have the support system of a traditional banker. This is where the mini correspondent concept comes from. It's really a mortgage broker that doesn't really have the resources to underwrite, the resources to draw docs, the resources to fund the loans directly. So there's a lot of hand-holding in a mini correspondent relationship, and it's understood that this relationship doesn't necessarily have the expertise of a traditional banker. They don't have our expertise. So some of the services that we currently provide that are part of our wholesale division, this relationship, this broker turned banker, which is going to represent majority of our business on the mini correspondent side, is going to use third-party services on a per loan basis and is going to initiate the disclosures that go out. And they're going to submit their file to us, just like they do now through our portal, except they will have already had disclosures sent out and signed. So effectively, they're acting as a lender, and the package will be submitted to us through our portal, just like we use today for our wholesale division, except we will not be doing any disclosures. We will not be sending out any disclosures to the borrower. So Greenbox loans will be effectively invisible and behind the scenes. In this equation, our primary role is to underwrite the files and sign off conditions very much like what we do on wholesale loans. So our position is to effectively assist them with being a lender. Again, that's where the term mini correspondent comes in. They can represent themselves as a lender, but behind the scenes, Greenbox is actually assisting them in making sure that the file is complete, making sure everything's done properly, and effectively assisting them in funding the loan, of which, within a matter of 4 to 5 days, we will come in and sweep the line and purchase the loan from them. So effectively, they are now acting as a lender, funding a loan on their facility that we set up for them, and we're coming in 4 to 5 days later, purchasing the loan from them as a closed loan. So it's already a funded loan, and Greenbox will come in and purchase the loan. Obviously, prior to them funding the loan on their warehouse facility, Greenbox will have to sign everything off and give the clearance and the green light in order for them to be able to do so. That's what protects the relationship and protects the mini correspondent. Now let me get into some other aspects of this process. Again, I want to repeat that we are not going to accept relationships with existing warehouse facilities that want to fund on those facilities and want to sell the loans to us. Our mini correspondent division is on a mandatory basis going to require the relationship to set up a new facility with us. Most people are not going to mind doing so because having extra warehouse facility never hurt anybody, especially if they're serious about doing non-QM loans. So this is not a negative, but it's actually a positive. And it'll, as I said, it allows them to be able to freely know that they can fund all the programs that we offer on the facility that gets set up for them without any delays nor problems. As part of this process, there's going to be some pricing improvement for them compared to our regular wholesale broker pricing. Automatically, there will be a pricing improvement. Those details will be released to you later. There will be opportunities to buy up the rate to obtain additional premium pricing effectively what you would like to know of is effectively like a rebate or servicing release premium to them. So they can offer a program to their borrower at par pricing without charging any points, and we will be paying them effectively an SRP on the loan as part of the purchase of that time of purchase of the loan. That doesn't mean they cannot charge, but that means that as a lender, they are going to be making money on the back end in addition to any points that are charged to the borrower. With that said, a couple of things to be aware of. What many companies do is they separate out their wholesale division from their correspondent or mini correspondent division. And that means that typically a lot of companies like to have a separate group or a separate division that handles correspondent business. That means that the wholesale sales team would not be able to keep any relationships that are correspondent. Part of the reason for that separation is that due to the improved pricing that's provided to the mini correspondent relationship, commissions on correspondent relationships are much different than they are on wholesale relationships. I believe that our wholesale sales team should be able to do both. However, it's important for you to realize that there are going to be adjustments on correspondent relationships on your commission schedule compared to what you're doing today. Now, the way to look at this, instead of looking at it as the cup is half full, you have to understand that, as I mentioned earlier, many companies are already separating the two, which means that the wholesale division, the salespeople don't even have the opportunity to keep or to market or to service correspondent relationships altogether. What this does is that it allows you to increase your production because you're going to get business from those that are capable, have the resources, have the financial net worth to be mini correspondents. The idea is that by setting them up with this facility and setting them up to be a lender and doing all this hand-holding, you have a deeper relationship with them than most other companies have currently in a wholesale capacity. It's one notch higher, and it gives them an advantage, which means that if today you had a relationship that's wholesale that can be sending the business to 5 other companies, they're going to be limited if they want to maintain and grow and have the prestige of representing themselves as a lender, that they can only do that with Greenbox based on the mini correspondent relationship that we set up with them. Their facility is a full warehouse line facility, but the relationship and the structure we're putting in place is very unique for them. As a result, what this means is it's effectively more of a captive relationship. A captive relationship meaning they cannot just turn around and just go somewhere else with the same loan. If they head down this road and they originate a loan and they send out the disclosures representing themselves as a lender and not the broker, this is a loan that's coming to Greenbox, and this is a loan that's going to be closed by them on their facility to be purchased by Greenbox. So it's important to understand the whole concept, and it's important to understand the structure. It's also important to know how to market this, because there are a lot of mortgage brokers that have been interested in this concept in being a mini correspondent, and being a mini correspondent on a non-QM, non-prime space is a lot different than being a mini correspondent on the agency and government side. Remember, the non-QM, non-prime products are fairly new in the marketplace, so a lot of people are not thinking that it's possible for them to be in a mini correspondent relationship because there are so many few lenders that actually specialize and have the expertise in these products. So the mini correspondent division represents an opportunity to present something unique and to take the existing relationships, and for those that are interested in expanding to that, create a captive relationship with them. Again, they do not have to have their own underwriting team. They do not have to have their own doc drawers. They do not need to have their own compliance department. They do not need to have their own funding group. Most of the services that are needed in a mini correspondent relationship are outsourced, and we will provide that, outsourced to third-party companies that specialize in that, and they charge on a per loan basis. The part that we are going to be involved with is going to be the underwriting side only. And with regards to that, we will be issuing the final clear to close, giving them the green light in order to fund the loan on their warehouse line that we've provided. The warehouse facility will not fund the loan without the clear to close from Greenbox. Because they're entering into a mini correspondent, non-delegated relationship, they will not be able to fund the loan until all conditions are cleared and Greenbox has provided the clear to close. That will be a mandatory requirement in order to ensure that bad loans are not funded on their warehouse facility and that they are not stuck with loans. As I said earlier, we're doing all the hand-holding for these relationships. With that being said, I don't have any other details to provide you at this point. You all have access to the system GoToMeeting, and there is a chat feature. I'm going to wait a few minutes and allow for any questions. If you do not have any questions, I'm going to wait a few minutes. If I do not have any questions at this point, I'm going to end the meeting, and we can have some follow-up conversations later on this week with regards to this topic. So with that being said, please go ahead and send me any kind of questions that you have regarding any of the items I have just explained. I'm going to be muting this call for a few minutes, and I'll come back and address the questions that are being posed. Thank you.